is your moment. This is your time. Embrace every milestone. No looking behind. What's your vantage point?
We are so glad to see you again. It's the Ladies of Vantage Point.
Yes.
And we had so much fun talking last time about Michelle Obama's book.
Leash.
It is called Becoming. And these two had a chance to listen to her live, and now she's your best friend, right?
I said she's not, I think she's more than a friend. I think she's like more of a mentor, like Oprah had Maya Angelou. I feel like I have Michelle Obama.
Yeah. She's a little bit of everything. She's like a big sister, my
that's
auntie,
it.
my
That's
mentor.
it.
She can be my godmother. She can be whatever she wants to be because she is a bad chick.
She is. She is.
She's all
I
that.
think all of us relate to her in some way. The book is over 20 chapters. It's a very detailed book. She gives you a good look at her personal life growing up, and then what it was like meeting Barack Obama and her formative years in her career, and then on, of course, to the presidency. And so just thinking about all those things together, she had a way of recognizing who she was, but then blending herself into different situations. So when it came to the presidency, we all know that Obama really pushed forward his healthcare initiative. And what did she do? Because she was right there supporting him and in that delicate balance, that delicate dance.
I think the whole Let's Move initiative was her idea of supporting what he has to do. It wasn't like her mission was to put somebody on the moon.
Right.
You know, she made sure that what she was doing supported his mission. So if you start with children and obesity with children, then, you know, that kind of moves on with the healthcare reform. I remember being in the cafeteria when it all went down and the food changed in the cafeteria and the kids were like, what is this foolishness? Wheat pretzels, Hayes. I got wheat pretzels. The pizza got to be weak too.
100% juice.
Right. The nerve.
It's funny because I live in D.C. and I was down around the basin one day. And we were, you know, they have those little carts and you just get your fast food, right?
Yeah.
And so we looked at it and was like, oh, this is all healthy. And the guy behind the cart was Michelle.
Yeah.
Like, that's Michelle.
Impact.
And I know. And I mean, she was everywhere. I remember her being on Ellen, on every talk show, every social media, every news
Beyonce was
outlet.
doing it.
Beyonce. She was on Sesame Street with Elmo talking about turn ups for what? You know, turn up. And it was so cute.
But you know what prompted that? There's a section in the book when she's talking about how she was struggling because she had never done this before. She was supporting her husband. She was going out there. It was kind of hard, and the feedback was a little harsh coming back. And so she fought for herself that she would have more help. She'd have a communication specialist. She'd get primed. She'd get taught how to do some presentations. And one of the things I love that her support said to her was, you need to find your strengths and be yourself.
Yeah.
What are your strengths? You love Barack Obama, you love your husband, you love your kids, you're naturally fit, you love health and fitness. And so she encouraged Michelle and gave her the freedom to be herself. And that's when you started to see the lighthearted side of her and all those shows that she did.
And that's it. You know someone who's truly authentic. She's real, like real.
And I think that's what America loves so much is because they could relate to her, they can touch her. They're like, I see me in her. She's real. I feel her heartbeat. And it changed the nation. It really, really did.
Even with the personal matters, you know, there's some personal matters in terms of her marriage, in terms of child rearing that she really got into.
Sure, yeah.
She was really open with that.
She did share her infertility challenge or fertility challenges, which I think is very, very. She was vulnerable in this book because a lot of women, particularly women of color, black and brown women, don't talk about it. They don't get help. They isolate. They're quiet. They suffer from depression. But there are options out there. And she has this, she quotes this in the book. She says, a miscarriage is lonely, painful, and demoralizing almost on a cellular level. And I can be transparent. I've had miscarriages. And it's just that. And she nailed it. But there are other options, and it's okay. Too many women in this country suffer from this in silence. So when I heard her say that, I said, you know what? She just gave me permission to be bold and say, hey, that happened to me too, but it's not over for me.
Because I'm still becoming.
Because I'm becoming. Gab Union talked about it, but when Michelle Obama said this, I was like, you know what? I love you.
That's so awesome.
I love you. And she encourages women who experience that to not see it as a personal failure, because you do go through that. Anybody who survived a miscarriage, you feel like this was the one thing I'm supposed to do as a woman, as a wife, but I failed. And she says, you did not fail. You did not fail.
Even down to giving the needles to herself while he was out on the trail.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's another good point. The way their marriage was for many, many years, because at first it was at the Senate level, they lived apart. I mean, he was coming home on weekends. He was doing the best he could. I mean, he was being the best dad he could. But a lot of their time was spent individually, and so she had to hold it down as a mom.
Right.
She was a working single. She was married, but she was acting as a
a
single
mom.
mother in a lot of those arenas.
And she said, you come along to our schedule. Like,
Right.
instead of me getting frustrated with you saying you're coming and not, the kids will be here, but they'll be in the bed if you're not here by 8 o'clock.
Right.
So you need to make it
Right.
adjust.
Right.
That was awesome.
It was funny too when he was running I think it was when he got the presidency. No, I'm sorry, when he was in the Senate. And one of the Senate ladies called and said, would you like to join our club? Would you like to do this? Would you like to do that? And she made it very, very clear that she had no intention of moving to D.C. She had her daughters. That was her priority. She was very guarded over their private time and to make sure that her girls had normalcy. And so it was interesting to me because part of her becoming was finding her own voice and saying, I'm going to do it my way.
Right.
I'm in this position, but I don't have to do it exactly like you. I have so many friends, pastors' wives, other business executive wives, and executives in their own right. And they have to go into those arenas and say, this is what you're expecting.
Right.
I know you're expecting this, but you're going to have to see me step into this role on my terms.
Right.
And that's grown-up talk right there.
I loved it.
That's
I loved
grown-up
it.
talk.
I loved it.
And she meant it.
And she meant it.
And she did it.
And she did it.
She did it. She had, and I love it. I love it. I'm drawn to her, the way she found her voice and her platform, where it wasn't like, there she go again trying to outshadow her husband, because you see that too, or at least women often say that, know your role. Well, she had a role and she lived it. She did well.
But she didn't have a defined role. She had to define it. But
She created it.
Exactly. Even down to when she talked about the conversation that she had with Laura Bush and the conversation she had with Hillary Clinton, and gleaning from people who've been in your position. And she said she offered that to her successor and making that available to them. But she made her own mark. I mean, just stamp.
Now, one of the things I learned from her, you just made me think about it, because I think it was the first term, and when they were having the inaugural balls, I think they had something like 10 different balls to go to that night. And she said by the time they got to one of the last ones, and this was the one that you would think she'd be looking forward to, because her friends had come down from Chicago. She said that she was so tired, and she saw a sea of people. And have you ever been there where you just can't get that one laugh? It's like, I am trying to stick this smile on my face. I am trying. And she was like, she turned and left. Barack looked at her and said, like, you're done, aren't you? And she turned and left. And it was powerful to me because she's actually saying, I have to choose myself.
That's right.
I know I'm going to disappoint all those people.
Wow.
I know they've been waiting all night to see me, to touch me, to take a picture.
But I have nothing left.
But I have nothing left. And at some point, you have to make life on your terms.
Yes.
At some point, you have to stand up for what's important to you. And I was like, go ahead. No, that's a bad chick. I was like, I'm taking the page out of your book, baby.
It was like every turn, there was a powerful lesson. Like, bad chick here, bad chick, everything.
When you get the Queen of England saying, nah, you sit in the back with me. Barack, you go ahead and get up to the front. I'm going to have you sit back here with me. Now
and hugging you. And hugging you when that's not, customary for them.
Even her arms made, you're mad because she's showing her arms. Man, if I had her arms, you'd be mad. I wear tank tops in the winter.
I remember in the book somewhere she talks about everything was ridiculed. They scrutinized every little thing. It was maybe a 90-degree day and she's getting off the plane. And she has shorts. Right. And she was torn apart for wearing shorts. I wish somebody would. Like, 90 degrees.
But the scrutiny of that position.
I know.
Where they're looking at everything your husband does, everything that you do, everything your children do, and they're looking for you to fail.
Yes.
That was just, she did a magnificent job.
Even the way, I'm proud of like Sasha and Malia's friends. because they could have really been in the Inquirer or some crazy place selling some story. So she must have given them some really deep insight into how you select your friends.
Right.
And it also talks about how Barack Obama was in his presidency was during the whole iPhone phase where that was the new thing. So selfies and all that other stuff. Her friends could have put her on blast a lot.
I'm
So
sure.
you must have done a pretty good job selecting, you know, who's going to be in your inner circle.
Yeah,
So props to that.
She has some hardcore friends that she could go back to time and time again. Something else that was intriguing, and I think of it because I think of you two and how you are with young people, the mentoring aspect. She poured her heart out.
But you know what I love about it? She didn't blast it to everybody. Hey, look what I'm doing.
No.
I'm helping these poor inner city children. And I also love the fact that she said she liked to touch them at least 3 times so that they know that it's not just the first time.
Or no,
catch
it's
that.
not a photo
Say that
op.
again? I
It
didn't
wasn't a
catch
photo
that.
op. She liked to touch them at least 3 times so that they know that it wasn't a photo op. And she would bring them to the White House, and they understood if I can sit at a round table in the White House, I
So
can sit
can you.
anywhere.
That's
Even Hadiah Pendleton's schoolmates, she brought them back to the White House.
Now
To
she's
have-
the one. She's the young lady who
young lady
was
that got killed.
murdered.
Was killed.
Yeah.
Yes. So she was saying how if she would have moved 6 inches to the left, she would still be alive. And if she moved 6 inches to the left, she'd still be alive, and she could be me. And, like that whole thing was crazy. But the whole mentoring aspect, having the people in the White House be the mentors and making sure that she touched them, that
The other
was
thing
amazing.
that I thought was so paramount and so just endearing to me, and I know you and I can relate to this, is when she was down, when she was blue, when she was off, her aides knew we need to get her around some young people.
Yeah.
We need to get her around some young girls because that gives her her energy, that gives her her purpose. And I was like, yes. I totally get
true.
it. It's true for me.
Yeah.
It's true for me. You know, there was a season where I was on the Hill fighting for young people. But your husband taught me this. Your husband said to me as an administrator, he said, in order for you to sustain that fight, you need to greet those babies when they get off the bus. You need to have lunch with them. And you need to say goodbye when they go home because you stay connected to their heartbeat. So when she said that in her book, I said, incredible. That was just knowing who you are and what you need. And sometimes we get so lost in the demands on us. She told her aides, if I get lost, this is what I need you to do.
Right.
That's I definitely can.
loved
definitely- and even in one of her conversations, I love real. Like don't sugarcoat stuff with me. Give it to me real, raw, and relevant. And when she sat down with those young kids and they were talking to her about how they were afraid to go outside, they were meeting with a guidance counselor and a group of kids, and she said 80-degree weather. What happens
80-degree and
when
sunny.
you see 80-degree and sunny on the news? And they said we think of the gangs and
Yep.
how much violence is going to take place as a result of the weather and having to walk down the middle of the street because you're less likely to get into a turf war and things like that. And then the young man said to her, this is all good and everything, but what you going to do? Like, I know you're here, but what you going to do? She didn't fill his head with a bunch of false promises. She said, listen, I'm not going to lie to you and say I can change everything, but I'm going to tell you about your power, and I'm going to tell you how you can go to school and change things instead of just making all these false promises. And I think that's the problem with politics.
And that's
the false
refreshing.
promises.
And
Yes,
that's refreshing,
absolutely.
especially for young people.
Yes.
Because young people know when you're lying to them.
Sure enough.
Really, adults do too, but young people, they have this special superpower where they know, I'm serious, they know whether or not you care about them.
Yes.
And it was the young people that actually helped put Barack in office.
Yes.
One of the things that I like about Michelle too, talking about politics, she doesn't like politics, and so it was interesting to me because she has this husband who's obviously very gifted, who loves it. She's more reserved. She's more quiet. She's like, I don't want all of that. And so at one point, everybody was saying, are you going to run? And this was after the Democratic speech, and he had done so well. So everyone's like, are you going to run? Are you going to run? And he started to say phrases like, well, it's a family decision, which is code for if Michelle lets me. And so that's pressure.
Yeah.
That is a lot of pressure on
pressure.
her.
Yes.
And I love talking about being real. She had to think for a long time. What is this going to do to my family? What is it going to do to my kids? Will we get swallowed up in this?
Right.
What's going to happen to us? Are we good enough? Are we enough to do this and still come out intact? And I remember she was thinking through all of these things, and she said, the reason why she said yes, that Barack had won, was because he was really the right person. That he had the temperament, he had the mind to handle this kind of thing and to think about broad things. She went through all these great accolades of his of why he should run, and then she honestly says, but I didn't think he was going to win.
Right.
I was like, I loved it. I loved it.
You are keeping it.
She said, after all, Barack was a black man in America, and I did not think he would win.
Yeah, yeah.
And some people didn't think. They were reluctant to celebrate because they said he's not going to win.
The only thing
Except for you. You were one of them?
I voted for him, but
I believed that he was going to win.
Oh, good for you.
I did.
And you brought it forward.
I did. Let me pray on some
But
stuff
you know
now.
what? When he said it's a family decision, I've heard other politicians and elected officials say that. But I never default to their wives. Why do we do that in this scenario? At least for me. I didn't think about the pressure on her to make that decision for the family. I just heard a candidate right now just, put her ring in for 2020 a few weeks ago, and she says it's a family decision. I didn't even think about her family. I didn't think about her husband. But we thought about it when he said that.
Because he said it.
He said it's a family decision, but other candidates have said that as well. Yeah. But I didn't put pressure on their spouses.
Right. I think that even at that point, they had presented themselves as such a unit. You know what I mean? There was something that was very unified about them. And so you wouldn't think of him going off and doing something, and she wasn't consulted, she wasn't part of that decision. She had a voice, and she had been using her voice all along. So I think that's the way that they had always come across. Yeah, and so that puts us there.
Now, I love everything in this book for the most part. There's one thing that I didn't like.
Oh boy, I think I know what it is.
It was the whole not forgiving Trump thing. And I'm hoping that was just, in your feelings and you just wrote it and, because you gotta
tell us what he said.
The whole idea behind him saying that Barack Obama wasn't really a U.S. citizen.
The birth certificate
thing. He wasn't in Kenya, and now you got all these crazy people making all these crazy threats. And how he put her family's life in jeopardy. And I totally,
I get it.
But I just cannot bring myself to believe that she really meant she'll never forgive him, because you got too much you got to be forgiven for.
She said, and for that I will never forgive him. Those
in italics.
And those were the words she used. But I felt her. I felt her. I was like, But I get it. I wish he can forgive as well. But what I do understand, and I think this was her intent, was for the world to see how dangerous it is to be reckless. So we just saw the accusations, right? But we didn't know about the threats, the attacks on that family. We just hear, I almost said a bad word. So make these accusations, but it really, really did put her family at risk.
It did.
Yeah, it did.
And I get it, but we have to forgive.
We have to forgive.
Godmother, whatever you want to be.
And you know what else I didn't know? I didn't know that President Trump was planning to run against Barack Obama.
Yeah.
I did not know
He had thrown that out there.
I wonder why you didn't. Yeah. I would love to see that debate.
Well, one of the things that really touched me personally was the epilogue. In the epilogue, she started to summarize a lot of things, and I just wanted to read something that she said that just really touched me. She said, "There is power in allowing yourself to be known and heard, in owning your own unique self and using your authentic voice." And that spoke to me volumes, because the intricacy and the web that I see that she draws throughout all of these sections in the book is that even when she was young, even as she's growing up, she is constantly trying to find her voice. The question is, who am I now? Who am I now when I go to school and it's all white people and I've never done that before? Who am I now when I graduate from college and I'm a lawyer and I'm successful and I'm making more money than my mother and father ever have, but I don't like my job?
Right.
Who am I now? Who am I now that I'm married to this wonderful guy who I only see on the weekends? Who am I now that I'm a mother? And that part where she's sitting in the car and her greatest goal had shifted from, these high and lofty work things to being able to, on her lunch hour, go get the child's toy, go get the hat for Sasha and Malia, get back in her chair, scarf down a burger, and get back to work on time.
Right.
That was her new normal. That was her new achievement of the day. Who is she now that she's in the White House? And she has to come up with a platform. It's kind of like all people have platforms.
Right.
When they gave her a tour of the White House, she came with questions. She was like, okay, so how does it work in terms of what we can spend? How does this work? And they gave her a tour of the dishes, the crystal, the china. And she's like, who am I now? Am I now only
That was
Mrs.
so good.
Obama? Because she had been Michelle all her life. So the fact that she just kept thinking, and when we talk about becoming, that's what I think about. You know, it's a process. You're never done. And if you're thoughtful about who you are, you're always responding to new stimulus, you're always responding to a new level, to a new age, and so we're always becoming.
That was good.
That was excellent.
Yes, because it's so true. It's like, okay, now who am I? I've been Michelle Robinson. I've been this woman, and now I'm Mrs. Obama. Like, you don't even put the Michelle on there. Like, you lose your identity, and you can't help but think about your own becoming as you read this. And I think it gave me permission to say, you always think that okay, I'm here. It gave me permission to say, it's all right. I have no idea who I am right now. I am a totally different person than I was 2 years ago. You know, I spend my days, you know, cleaning and picking up after kids when I'm used to being in charge of 1,000, you know, teenagers. Yeah. So my becoming is continual. And what she said was, it's okay. It's okay. Becoming, that's an action word. It's always evolving. You're always changing. So if I had to answer the question, who are you becoming? I don't have a clue. Like,
I relate.
I don't know.
Listen,
I don't know. But I'm gonna ride this ride and see where it takes me.
It goes back to that checklist that she talks about. You know, I was trying for so long to become the checklist.
Yes.
I was trying for so long to see every single box checked off. But after going on this journey and learning about her life, I just want to take my list and just crumble it up and just throw it in the fire. Because it's always changing. Yes. You're evolving. The world is changing. You're going to change. And really, what God has for Natalie, what I'm learning is that my list was so irrelevant to what God had planned.
Right.
I had to let it go. And it's okay. And so to answer that question, how am I becoming? I'm just embracing this thing day by day. And I'm giving myself permission to throw that list in the fire and be okay with that.
Well, it's funny because Michelle Obama is 2 years younger than I am. So when I was reading this book, I was like right there with her. When she was describing her youth and being with the cousins, and they're like, how come you speak so white and all that, I was like right there with her. And even the Michael Jackson and the things she would talk about, it's like the Jordache jeans, and I was right there. And it was interesting because now, at my age and now at her age, you know, her children are getting older. She's not going to be the mom anymore. Her husband needs her in a different way.
Right.
And so she has ability to rethink herself. And when I don't know if it was the opening or the ending of the book, where she was by herself making a sandwich, a toast sandwich or something. You know, she doesn't have servants making her these sandwiches anymore. She's doing it by herself, and she gets to contemplate, what does that mean to me?
Right.
And it made me think about something, because someone once said to me recently, when you're hungry, what do you get? Food. When you're thirsty, what do you get?
Drink.
When you're stuck, what do you get? She said, exploration. Wow. When you feel stuck, it's time for you to explore. And I was thinking about that with Michelle, and I was thinking about that with myself. That it's time to explore. That you're never closing a book and another one's not opening. Closing a chapter, another one's not opening. It's time to explore. And so for me, I mean, that's one of the ways that I really related to her, that it's time to think about what else we want out of life. There's a quote that I always like, and it says, we all have two lives. I'm sorry, I think I'm saying that the wrong way. We all have two lives. The second one starts when we realize we only have one.
Wow.
That's good.
Wow.
The second one starts when we realize we only have one. And so the thing that I take away from this book, and I recommend it to you, I think everyone should.
Excellent.
If you don't want to get the hardbound, you can download it on all these apps. That's what I did. It was a very easy read. She reads it herself, which I think is a bonus. You get to hear it in her voice, and we're becoming, and it leads you to ask that question.
Yeah.
What are you becoming now?
I felt like we were becoming friends and family as I read it, because I too read the book. Well, this was outstanding. This was a great, great conversation, and I encourage you all to pick up your copy of the book, listen to the audiobook if reading is not your thing, or do both. I know some of us did both. But it is extraordinary. It's provocative. It's an excellent, excellent memoir of Michelle Obama. It gives you insight on her life, on her children, on her marriage, on what was great, on some challenges, what it was like to live in the White House, and so much more. Yeah. And so we hope that you join us in the future. Please like us on Facebook, hashtag Vantage Point, and be sure to hashtag I am becoming. Chime in on the conversation. Tell us what you think. Tell us how you feel. Tell us your becoming. What does that look and sound like? This is our Vantage Point. What's yours?
What's your vantage